Hello everybody, Brad Johnson here. I have another exciting video to reveal to you all, and the topic of today's video is all about purifying desire and realizing its true power. So we're going to get into something very, very deep here regarding the nature of desire itself. Now, for quite a few years, I haven't really preferred to use that word regarding desire. Because when I looked at the idea of desire, just like many others who I was talking to or connecting with or looking at their kind of work, their spiritual work, they always looked at the idea of desire that would represent lust or craving or seduction, etc. It could go on and on. Looking at something that would represent more just disharmonious terms, much more heavy, materialized terms when we look at the common viewpoint representing desire. Must be something lustful, must be something that's a craving, a seduction, right? Just very, very low and base. And so let's not go there with desire. Let's discard it all together and not have it in the vocabulary, not try to comprehend it in any other way other than these basic terms that are in association together with it. But the other night, I was actually looking into the nature of desire a lot more. I was going into investigation. That's what I do. I investigate things. Sometimes I'll look at material online. I'll look at some of these authors from like the 1900s, early 1900s and so forth, and getting a lot of their perspective because they're really, really good at kind of just giving me these inspirational flares that take place. And I kind of deeply investigate these things and saying, you know what, there is something more here than what so many spiritual teachers, in fact, even yogis, have talked about relating to the nature of desire. Now, that's not to say that this is wrong. Okay? If we basically look at desire in a way that can be lustful, that can be seducing, that can be, all about craving and, just really, really wanting that insatiable hunger for greed or materialism, desire can certainly fit the bill for that, right? So it's not to say that they're wrong, right? But they're half correct. So this is where, in this video, we're going to give a new spin on desire. We're going to look at it in a new way so that it's actually okay to say that word again, particularly for myself. Because like I said, I haven't really used that term in quite a few years. Maybe sometimes it might slip out here and there, but I was like, no, I'll talk about desire. It's materialistic and seductive and lust-filled and all that stuff. Let's not talk about that. But no, today we're going to give a new impression about the nature of desire. So when we're looking at the nature of desire, in regards to its true nature, to really purify it, really the idea of desire itself is we're bringing the unmanifest into the manifest. We're taking something from, you could even say, the ethers, right? We're taking that from that is spirit made into material, right? It's a manifestation process when we look at the nature of desire. So, Brad, how does that fit? Well, let's take a look at the idea of concentrated thought. Because I've talked about concentrated thought before, about how powerful that is. But as I look a lot more deeper into the nature itself of concentrated thought, it is not the thought itself that is actually receiving that power, right? So if I have, for example, a concentrated thought to go out of body, right? To have an out-of-body experience, I could concentrate just on that thought all day long with no real desire behind it, and nothing will happen. It really is not thought that is responsible for concentrated thought. Okay? The concentration here, even when we're looking at concentration-based exercises, the concentration is not based upon the thought itself. There's a desire there. Okay? So if I want to have a concentrated thought that's going to bring me out of body and have an out-of-body experience and start exploring the astral realm and so forth, that concentrated thought is not going to come just through this. That concentrated thought comes through the desire itself. There is a desire to make that thought strong. There is a desire to make that thought powerful. And through that empowered thought, well, that concentrated thought happened because of desire. Okay? So we can call it desire, we can call it intention, we can call it will or willpower. It's all the same thing. But another thing to understand is that desire, the force itself that represents desire, because this is the force, it is the force to bring the unmanifest into the manifest. It is the force from spirit that is bringing something into material. It's bringing things into material reality. It's the force behind it all, right? We could even call it source energy in that way. But another way of looking at desire is a ray of power. Okay? So when we desire to do something, when we have that very powerful desire, this is where incredible feats of strength or incredible situations can unfold. It's like I've talked about through many different urban legends, that when an old woman sees their loved one under a car during a crash that's taken place and needs to get them out, otherwise they'll die, they will concentrate themselves and they will actually lift the car up so that they can get a hold of the loved one and save their life, right? Kids have been doing this, teenagers, old women, old men, etc. We all have that ray of power. And again, we often call it through, we're looking into metaphysics, looking into spiritual circles, we often call that concentrated thought. In a way, that's true. We're concentrating an ability within ourselves through the nature of desire. Desire is that ray of power that we are able to concentrate to make all of these things happen. It's a God-given ability to us where we are shining this ray, this invisible ray of power, upon anything that we want to bring into reality. And we can even bend the rules of what we would understand as the man-based understanding of physics, right? It defies all logic, it defies all physics. Look at the idea of how Christ was able to walk on water, right? How he was able to perform all of these amazing, miraculous, instantaneous healings to all these people throughout his life. Not to mention what other masters can do as well too, that they can stop the rain, that they can walk through a storm and not get wet whatsoever, that they can teleport, that they can dematerialize and rematerialize themselves elsewhere. That doesn't come through thought alone, right? Thought plays a part to a certain degree, but it is the desire to do these things. Desire itself, like I said, is a God-given ability that we have. It's something that is extremely profound, and it's not of the mind. So when we look at the mind itself, the mind in its nature is all about idea. It's an idea device. That's what the mind is, okay? But if we take away desire, if we take away any willpower, any intent that we have, then the mind just becomes completely bland, right? It has nothing. It's like a machine that's basically just powering down. That desire, that willpower that we have is the driving force that is the ray of power that shines through the mind and through the thought being the focal lens, receiving that ray of power through desire to therefore manifest something into being. Okay? It's basically the whole nature of how we attract things. The whole nature pertaining to attraction is focused upon the ray of power. Okay? Even with what we attract, even with what we repel, it all comes down into the nature of the ray of power. It is desire. So Brad, what are you trying to say here in regards to the nature of desire? Because the way that you're sounding, it sounds like it's actually okay to have desire. Well, it's exactly what I'm saying. It is okay for you to have desire, right? But we have to understand that desire itself is a two-sided coin, okay? So if we use it the right way, the harmonious way, we can see a great deal of powerful benefit that comes together. We are basically being our God selves and using desire as the ray of power to bring about powerful, creative, beneficial, profound, miraculous experiences into our life. And then there's the other side as well too, where we use this for material reality. And we use it for our own selfish means. We use it for materialistic goods. We use it for everything that's much more egoic. We use it for seduction in all that way. So it really is a double-sided coin, a two-sided coin, when we're looking at these two things. Here's one side of the coin. Here's the other side of the coin. So again, we can use it in that way. That's, again, why we have our ability to decide how we want to use this ray of power that we call desire. So again, it is that desire to do the work that you want to do. It is that desire for you to love somebody. It is that desire for you to enjoy everything that life has to offer. It is that desire for you to unify and be one with spirit. Okay? It is your desire to bring such harmonious peace, tranquility, enjoyment, expansion, bliss into your life. That comes through desire. You have to want that, right? You have to want that desire to be peaceful. You want to have that desire to be loving. You want to have that desire to take advantage and enjoy everything that life has to offer. You have to have that desire to be one with spirit. Okay? All of that requires desire. Even if people don't like that word, that's the truth though. Okay? It all comes down to desire. Even a lot of yogis, sages, masters, will talk about the idea that there is desire that can be used. It's those yogis, it's those masters who have such a deep desire to be one with God, that they want to have an experience with God so deeply that it almost aches, that they will burst out in tears because they want an experience with God. That's desire, folks. Okay? That is the nature of desire right there. And yogis will tell a lot of their students that, saying if you want to have an experience of God, you have to desire that experience more than anything. It's like I tell my students as well too. Really, we have that one desire. It's that desire to go completely free. It's that desire to be liberated. It's that desire to go home into the self, to go into the abode. That's a desire, right? But what we're clearing away is we're clearing away a lot of this muck, a lot of this grime, a lot of this slimy, detestable, despicable means where we have erroneously used our desire for erroneous and disharmonious situations, events, experiences in our life. This is what we're learning to clear out. This is what we're learning to clear away. We are using our ray of power for something that is incredibly disharmonious because we take on the worldly lust and greed. And separation consciousness. That's what many of us use our ray of power for. I want to be successful. I want to be a billionaire. And I want to hog it all for myself. And maybe I'll give little scraps to people here and there, right? This is why we have such people on this planet, right? We have the corrupt who have been using their rays of power for this, for that worldly lust, for that greed, for that control, to continue to emphasize separation-based consciousness. And that leads to disaster. That leads to misery. There's nothing redeemable about such a path. This is why we have to discipline our desire. And we discipline our desire by releasing, by learning to surrender, clearing away all of those things that have been detrimental to our growth, that have basically stunted us from going all the way to spirit, that has stunted us to go to the divine. Because that really should be your entire purpose, is to go to the divine, is to unify with God, is to be one with spirit. And your desire gets you there, okay? And of course, there will be great masters who will say, well, there will be a point where you will not even require desire at all. You will simply just be. And that's true too. Where we can simply just be. As we are being, everything is looked after in that way. Therefore, you have no desire. And if you decide to walk that path, that certainly is possibility as well too. But what I talk about more so is the idea of integration, right? So we're working with the power of integration here. And it is very important to work with beingness, right? Beingness is helping you to truly understand who you really are, what you really are, right? Going into beingness, going into surrender, going into the abode, right? Because that is who you really are. But as I've talked about, you go all the way up and then you're brought all the way back down again, okay? And like I said, the people that I'm working with, I'm not teaching you guys how to be a yogi or a monk, right? Going off to some cave to meditate in there for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, etc. It's the idea that you are going all the way to the top, where you feel the divinity, where you feel the union with God. And then you're being brought back down again, and we're following integration. And through that integration, desire is a catalyst for that. We work together with the nature of desire. If some of you are familiar with a book series that is referred to as the Ringing Cedar series or the Anastasia books, okay? If you haven't heard of it, I would suggest you read it. I've been aware of it since 2010, and I've been reading it on and off for about 12 years. I've actually connected with the person, of course, that makes that book shine, Anastasia. Okay? Now, in the series, Anastasia talks about her ray, that she has a ray. And through that ray, she's able to access all the knowledge, all the wisdom that exists within the entire universe. Through that ray, she's able to communicate with God. Okay? That ray of power is desire. That ray of power is your willpower. It is your intent. So it's like looking at us here. And we're constantly shining this ray. If we are undisciplined with the nature of desire, we could again start looking at that side of the coin. We could start looking at the idea of disarray and disharmony and corruption. But when we start to mature ourselves and we start to realize that desire is not just one-sided, that does not relate to the idea of just lust and greed and seduction or anything of that nature, we now start to flip the coin around, which means we're utilizing our nature of desire for creative means. When we go all the way up to the top, and then we come back down again through the process of integration, and now we desire to bring about peace in our entire life. We desire to teach others. We desire to bring about these incredible experiences, events, opportunities that come into our life, not for our own benefit, but to bring about a state of harmony for others. Our service to others is a desire, right? Our love for others is a desire. Peace that we want to establish through our life is a desire. Taking in everything that life has to offer is a desire, right? These are all desires. But like I said, when you're looking at desire, it is the source ray. It is that ray that is shining. Here is the mind acting as a lens. Here is a particular thought acting as the focal lens. And again, piercing reality, piercing the manifested world, and bringing about these types of attractions. Like I said, this is how Jesus was able to do the abilities he was able to do, was through a clean desire. Many other masters as well, too. Being able to do these incredible things is a polished and clean degree of desire, right? It's like you're tuning into the source energy itself of that ray, representing desire, right? The ray is always pure. The ray is always clean, okay? It's the lens that gets all murky. It's the lens that gets all grimy. It's the lens that gets all dirty and disgusting because of how we have taken care of our mind. Many of us do not take care of it. We, again, use it erroneously. We play with victim consciousness. We go into lust. We go into greed. We go into corruption. We continue to empower this separate self-consciousness. And that's what's making this mind of ours so grimy and so yucky, so despicable, because we keep putting all of this victim consciousness, this outside living from the outside in. It's the mind itself that's contaminated. It's not your ray, okay? Your ray is pure source energy. It's pure consciousness, right? That's the nature of your ray. So when we clean up the mind, start clearing away all that filth and grime and dirt, and we now start to purify the mind through beingness, through going into the abode, through surrendering, through releasing, we go all the way up to the top. We come back down to the bottom again. And now we come back down to the bottom as an integrated soul, and now we can work with our desire. We can even just simply be within that ray of power and just simply be it. Be the source power. Be the source energy. Be the ray of power. And just simply be completely neutral to everything that life is. You can certainly live that way. Absolutely. Right? That would be the nature more so of the non-dualist. The non-dualist will only ever admit there is only the self. So therefore, they will simply stand in neutrality, representing their source ray, representing desire. Desire, therefore, becomes neutralized, and they rest in the peacefulness of being within their own source ray. So what's being said here, guys, is that desire is not the filthy, grimy, despicable, right, seductive, lustful, greedy thing that it has been made out to be. There's another side to it. It's not the desire itself that's the problem. It's how we have oriented ourselves to give the impression of what desire means and have carried out those manifestations through our ray. Our ray of power through the lens of the mind, which has become grimy and dirty, is bringing about those grimy, dirty, separate self-consciousness based themes within our life. It's how we see the world. It's how we continue to limit ourselves. It's our beliefs. And again, these are more of those focal lenses, right, coming through a dirty mind. And again, there's more of these things that just continue to shine. And then again, we get more grime, more dirt, more filth that comes through ourselves because we see ourselves as limited beings, as the limited self, as separate self, as corruption. So, as long as you continue to look at life in this way, your ray is going to continue to amplify, is going to continue to work in attraction, manifestation, pertaining to all of those dirty, grimy, separate self-based events, those circumstances, those manifestations, those attractions. But when we clean it all up, it's a different story. Flips around completely. So this is what we have to remember pertaining to the nature of desire. When we are working with the nature of desire itself, like I said, you are looking at something that truly exists beyond the mind. Here's the honest truth. When we're looking at the nature of the soul, the mind itself is the lowest, it is the slowest, and it is the weakest aspect of the mind, which means there are higher levels. If we're going right up into the idea of self, right, where there just is permanence, right, between the mind, between self, which we cannot even fathom, there are some layers that are here that even go beyond the mind, right? Here's the mind, like I talked about membranes, right? There's a membrane around the mind, okay? But these are, again, the outer layers of that membrane. That's going to be coming in another video, right? I'm going to be talking more about that in another video. But to really sum it up here, the mind itself is the slowest, it is the lowest, and it is the weakest aspect of the soul. That is completely correct, okay? The mind itself is an idea machine. It's an ideal technology. It's all about ideas. It's ideation. That's the highest part of the mind. It's the causal, right? The causal is all about ideas. Then below that we have the astral, which represents the idea of the manifestation of thought. Then of course we have the physical below that, manifestation of material reality. But everything then in that sense that basically causes this gear to continue to turn is through that intelligence that pours itself directly into the mind and condenses everything that represents what we know as life to be. Because all life, everything that exists in life, everything that represents an object, is all the condensing of consciousness, okay? And we're looking at that ray of power. That ray of power is the very thing that is shining that light, causing the mechanisms of the gears within the mind to move. The mind will always submit to your ray of power. It will submit to your desire. Whether the mind is mucky, dirty, and grimy, or whether the mind is completely cleaned and refined. So again, we have to be responsible of how we are treating the mind. We have to be responsible of the type of things that we're putting out through life, because our ray is going to bring it into life. That ray, we can't even really articulately describe how that ray works, other than it being the idea of desire, willpower, intention, a ray of power, that very essence that makes the mechanisms of the gears within the mind move. Therefore, being able to be aware of your ray of power, of knowing that every particular form of desire, whatever you wish, when you're completely behind that desire, 100% it's going to come to life. It's going to be brought from the ethers into the manifested world, right? I'm not saying that you're going to manifest a loaf of bread out of nowhere. What I'm basically saying is that everything that represents the nature of the magnetism representing attraction and repulsion is all based upon that nature of that ray. That's the light that's shining upon the gears of the mind, causing the mind to operate, to function, and to move through our ray of power, through desire itself. So desire does not have to be looked at as some horrible thing. It can certainly have that aspect, but like in everything else, there are two sides to every coin, okay? And like I said, as we go up past these layers, which I'll be describing in another video, we come right up into permanence. We come right up into the self, where there is no desire. It's desireless. It is permanence. It is stillness. It is silence. It is the infinite. It is the eternal. No beginning, no ending. There is no vibration whatsoever, because the ray of power does work together with a type of source vibration. It's just extremely powerful, right? So again, we still can't really give an idea of its origin. It's just through you. That's the best thing that can be shared. The ray of power, the very essence that pertains to your desire, is through you. It is you, right? So we're working with the ray, and through that ray of power, we can manifest things. We can bring things into other dimensions and come here if that is our desire too. We can lift a 2-ton car over our head with the desire to do so. We can walk on water with the desire to do so. We can fly in the air and levitate with the desire to do so. We can teleport from one place to another with the desire to do so. That again is what many people mistaken as concentrated thought, but it's not the thought that's getting concentrated. It is the desire itself that is actually causing the thought to expand, because that's the focal lens, okay? The ray of power is responsible for these miracles to come together, to do these concentrated things, to do these amazing feats all together. Does not involve the mind. The mind just plays a part as that lens to, again, focalize that intention, whatever it may be, to bring it into manifestation, right? The ray of power, when you look at it, it's complete and total innocence. It's complete and total innocence altogether. It has no, we call it a desire, but really that ray of power is just present. It's just here. It's just within us. It is us, right? But when you look into that ray of power itself, it has no agenda. It has no polarity to it in that way. It's just the raw power that we can roughly translate it to be desire, because desire is what brings it into doing the work that appears within the manifested mind, by us just tapping into that power and cleaning up the mind, and now renewing ourselves and seeing an incredible life come together, because we've cleaned ourselves up, we've matured ourselves, we've come to peace with the nature of desire. We can work with that ray in any way that we see fit and create a paradise. That's how powerful it is, right? Whether you believe it or not, that's how it is, right? That's, again, the entire subject of the miracle. It's like I talked about when we go into beingness, okay, and we are in harmony with everything, right? Everything is just in that beautiful flow of harmony. Therefore, we have a thought, just a simple thought, and say, okay, I'm not going to really bust myself going up all these steps. Feel there will be another way, okay? When I say that, yes, there's a thought that comes out, the thought representing, I don't want to climb up all of these steps to the mountain. I know that there's another way. Well, there's the ray shining right behind it, and the thought is the navigator. It is that focal lens and saying, okay, oh my God, I teleported up the mountain. I went up about 125 feet. So I knew I couldn't handle all those stairs. But because I was completely at peace and in harmony with me, with my desire, with my thought, that manifestation came together. And I just took a step forward, and all of a sudden, did I just teleport? That's it. So that all comes through a nature of harmony, right? If we're getting upset and saying, oh, I don't want to climb up these stairs, blah, 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 blah. No, then that harmony will not be achieved to bring about such a miracle, right? If we're in conflict with that, then nothing will take place. Because if you are in conflict with that, then you feel that you are in lack. And because you feel you're in lack, you're not going to have any miracle that's going to bring you up the stairs through teleportation, right? So whenever we feel like we need something, whenever we feel like we want something, whenever we feel like that need is there, that's the principle of lack right there. So again, it does not come through belly aching. It does not come from whining and complaining. Okay? Because again, the desire ray of power is always shining. And so if you continue to be in lack, then that ray of power is just going to continue to bring forward that lack, right? The thought is just the navigator. It's just the navigator. It's nothing else. This is not what brings about that miracle, okay? It's a pointer. It's a navigator. It's something that, again, is orienting the focal lens, but it's your connection to this. It's your connection to your desire. I'm looking up at these big stairs. Dear God, there must be a better way for me to go all the way up to the top of the mountain. I say that with gracefulness, and I say that with serenity, and I say that with peace. As soon as I step forward, I'm at the top of the mountain. Because like I said, I've gone all the way up. I've come all the way back down through integration, which means I'm in harmony with everything because I am in beingness. And while I'm in that state of beingness, everything is like calm waters. And even when I see 1,000 steps up to the mountain, I'm still at peace with it by saying, but you know what? God, there must be another way up. And just saying that with grace, all of a sudden it's done. That desire told you that. There must be another way up. Therefore, through that peace, through that humility, through that tranquility, here you are from down here, all the way up here. Like that. Okay? That's how it works. Okay? That ray of desire becomes, to us, from our perspective, becomes so much more magnificent, so much more amplified because we've made peace with ourselves. When you are completely in a state of disarray, and you're feeling, again, disconnected and separate to all things, you're not even going to realize this ray, even though it's working. Okay? But all it's doing is it's being that tide, that force that is continuing to gravitate everything that represents the muckiness, the grime, the dirt, that represents separate self-consciousness. And that's why we stay together in that state of lack. Okay? So when we're going into beingness, when we're going all the way up, coming all the way back down, we have brought forward peace. We have brought forward neutrality. We are remaining in beingness. And now, just through that simple desire to just say, dear Lord, there must be a better way up the mountain. It's done. Because of the ray of power, that thought being the navigator, and you're there. These are the miracles, right? That is how you have that miracle. Like I said, a miracle is the effect of harmony. Therefore, while you are at peace in that harmony, and just saying there must be another way, in a situation like this, your ray brings you all the way up to the top of the mountain because of the harmony. See, harmony makes that ray purer. Harmony itself is what brings about the purity of this ray, which means we notice it. And again, we're able to see it. It's kind of like if you're in a bubble, like a glass bubble, and everything's just murky and grimy because of separate self-consciousness. But we start to clean ourselves up, we start doing release work, we start surrendering. We can now start to see all of that grime and dirt move away from that bubble. And now we say, oh my God, there's the ray. There's the ray, I can see it. I can see the ray now. And again, as I continue to move through life harmoniously, anything I ask for will be done because I know the ray is there. It is through the nature of silence, it is through the nature of peace, it is through the nature of neutrality that brings the purity of your ray forward. It's already pure. But now you're aware of its purity. You're aware of what you're capable of. You're aware to know that everything is perfect and everything is possible. And the ray will carry you with that. because silence, stillness, peace, tranquility, neutrality, beingness is that Windex that's cleaning up that bubble so that you can see the power of your ray. It always has been powerful, but you needed to come to terms harmoniously, peacefully, neutrally, to understand its power. And now that you understand the ray of power, you can do magnificent things on this planet. Like I said in the Ringing Cedar series, Anastasia, I got her name right, Anastasia, using her ray to access all knowledge. We can do that too. Once we know we've cleaned away that bubble and we know the power of our ray, it is our recognition of knowing that the power is there, that the miracles itself can be performed. Why do you think Jesus was able to do the things that he was able to do? He knew his power. He commanded the Christ consciousness presence because he knew the power that he held. And it is through beingness, it is through neutrality, it is through peace, it is through tranquility that allows us to become empowered with this ray. We're conscious of it now. And now miracles will follow. And that's the nature of purifying our desire. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you again in another perspective of the now. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaskar. Be well. Thank you very much for checking out the New Earth Teachings YouTube channel. Feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And you can check out the websites, newearthteachings.com, where you can order a private session, 3 questions by email, EQ method, and a lot more. And you can also check out healingcodecards.com, where you can grab your mind deck, your body deck, and of course the brand new Body Deck Special Edition. All of these are available in digital editions as well. And you can also get a shirt just like this through healingcodeshop.com, where you can experience the healing codes in apparel form. So feel free to check out these websites. Thank you so much, and I'll speak to you again in the next video. Be well.